I would like to say that I agree in general. There's only one thing, and I hope this does not put a needle to a balloon here. The thing is Finanzierungsvorbehalt. It's a nice German word, and Finanzierungsvorbehalt means that we ask the question, who pays? All these measures, and that I think is one of the reasons why the United States changed policies rather reluctantly, and we've seen that change within the last 5 years. All these policies need huge investment by the state, because it is about externalizing or internalizing external factors, and it is about jump-starting investments through direct contributions from the state. It costs a lot of money. Now, this cannot be an argument not to do anything. As we can see in Germany, we have a history of success. The results that we can see are, for example, simple numbers. We have 370,000 people employed in the renewable energies sector. Germany holds a market share of 25% in the production of wind energy. It has made us a market leader, this kind of investment. But, Julia, you have to answer the question whenever you talk to a policymaker, what does it cost and who can pay for it? So this would be my question and my comment to you.
Georg, I think you took one of my questions. That was actually also going to be one of my questions, was the funding angle. My question actually, I was going to phrase it, are we ready to pay more? Because I think fundamentally that's a question that maybe the US and the EU, we need to be ready to ask ourselves, are we ready to pay more, not just for our lights, but for our clothing, for our shoes, for everything that we purchase that is produced so inexpensively because the environmental costs aren't delivered into our products. And I was wondering if this was something you had discussed during your working group. Another question I wanted to ask you is, I found your idea for an online and democratic global patent tool interesting, and wanted to know if you could elaborate on how you thought that would contribute to resolving this issue. And I had one point of clarification. In your paper, you mentioned the EPA, and you called it the Energy Protection Agency in the US, and it's not, it's the Environmental Protection Agency. It's a very important distinction, so I had to clarify that. And I look forward to hearing your answers. Thank you.
Okay, I think the big issue that came up was certainly funding. First of all, I believe that we saw that once the political framework was there, investments were made. There's the example of the renewables energy law in Germany, and once we had the political framework, investment actually kicked off. But still, the question is, are we willing to pay it? I think there's, first of all, there's real benefits, and second, the question is, are we willing to pay maybe 1% of GDP now, or do we want to pay 10-15% of GDP in the future? Maybe many of you are familiar with the Stern report. The Stern report outlined this question of funding, and they came up with a quite conservative measurement, and they said, well, we have the choice of paying 1%, 2% of GDP now for climate change adaptation and mitigation, or we will have to sacrifice 10% of our GDP in the future. So I think actually it's not a question, are we willing to pay? We have the obligation to pay. And it will pay off. Already you mentioned the green jobs. I think that's important. And also I mentioned some of the positive side effects. Energy security is a huge topic in the US right now. And that's certainly one of the benefits, which are not direct economic benefits, but of tremendous importance. Then you brought up the idea of an online green patent pool. The idea was that there's a lot of good technology for saving energy, for energy efficiency right now. The problem is often that those technology doesn't reach developing countries, or also improvements do not reach developing countries. So one of my colleagues came up with the idea that we have this patent pool, and that you insert your ideas and that you benefit from other people's ideas, and that you're under the obligation to come up with your improvements, and you have to feed them into the pool as well. And first it would be governed by a board, and later it would be governed by a wiki structure. So this is one of our rather future-directed ideas, but we found it important to come up with certain visions as well. And finally, I was well aware of the little mistake as well. Unfortunately, too late to correct it, but I think all of us were aware of it, and yeah. Thank you for clarifying again.